I'm good. And on that note, welcome to Cross Country.
Welcome to a special episode of Cross Country.
A special episode of Cross Country. I'm Leanna.
I'm Diamond.
And this is so exciting because, as opposed to normal, when we are cross the country, I'm usually in Delaware and you're usually in Las Vegas. But this week, you're here in Delaware with me. We're in the same room. We can touch each other. Touch. And it's good and great and fantastic.
Woo.
And this is the book club episode that we've been so excited about. You finished the book this morning.
I did.
And I finished it maybe a week and a half ago.
Yeah.
I maybe should have waited a little longer, but it's okay. It's still there. It'll be fine.
I tried to wait not too long, but a reasonable amount of time so that when I got started, when I got finished, it wouldn't be like long gone out of my brain. Forgot what that story was about. And in doing that, I ended up forgetting how much you have to do to prepare to take a trip, take a vacation.
Yeah.
I forget that there's extra work hours involved. There's a lot of shit you gotta make sure is done, and I ended up not having as much time as I thought I was going to have in order to finish the book. Yeah. So life is hard.
Mm-hmm.
But it's okay. We got it done. I finished it this morning. It's all good.
We make it through. And you're leaving to go back home tomorrow morning.
I am. I'm leaving at 4 o'clock in the morning tomorrow to go home.
Woohoo! Woo! Alright, so this time around, we're actually drinking the same things. We went downstairs before we started recording, and I made us both what's called an island sunset, which I never heard it called that. It's all it is white rum, pineapple juice, and grenadine on top. And it tastes basically like pineapple juice. Yeah. With a little extra sweetness. And it's nice. Because white rum doesn't really taste like much. No. Like, there's a decent amount of rum in there, but not enough that it bothers me, so.
That's why I always prefer rum. Because you can just drink it, and it's like, there's nothing in that. It's totally fine.
Drink responsibly. So, alright. Sick. So, this month, we started our book club thing that we're doing that we'll hopefully continue to be doing, and this month we decided to read a Neil Gaiman book because I've been reading a lot of Neil Gaiman books and really, really enjoying them, and so we read The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman. I'm just sorry, losing my mind. We read The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman, and it was so fun.
It was really cute.
I loved it so much. It was so, like, wholesome and also, like, a little bit dark, and, like, there's dark things going on, but it just feels very, like, I don't know, it's just, like, a nice little, I don't know.
It's definitely a book that you read when you're wanting that little bit of fantasy and adventure, but you're also you just want a wholesome thing. You just want to read a good book, like a feel-good book, you know?
Yeah, it's definitely a feel-good book, and I feel like December and the holiday season is so ridiculous, and it's just a nice book to read about around that time, so that you're just like, this is nice, a little reprieve from the stress.
Yeah.
So, so we're gonna get started talking about it and stuff. I guess, I'm not sure. So, for a brief overview for anyone. Oh, first thing I should say is spoiler alert for anyone listening who might want to read the book. There are going to be many spoilers, so you're better off reading it first and then listening to this episode. So
bye.
There's your warning. Yeah, bye.
Bye. See you after you read it.
Yeah.
Or if you don't give a fuck, then welcome.
Yeah, then welcome, and we'll talk about it together. And
or if you've read it too, not like only either you haven't read it and you don't want to listen.
Nobody
to this,
has read it ever.
Or you haven't read it and you're just like, fuck it. I just like hearing people talk.
Yeah, for sure. So, Graveyard Book is by Neil Gaiman, who has written countless classics. Coraline with Terry Pratchett. He wrote Good Omens. Ocean at the End of the Lane, Stardust, so many books, a lot of which I've read this year, which started my Neil Gaiman kick, and it's just a lot of fun. He wrote 2 episodes of Doctor Who. He's so good at writing. But everyone, knows that already, so. Yeah. Alright, so I'm just bringing up some beginning info here, just to have a little bit of a, a little bit of an intro.
Yeah.
Trying to find the, the blurb. I always call it the blurb. I'm not sure what you're supposed to call it, but I call it the blurb. So, yeah, we'll get started with that. What were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say I'm really not sure what that's called.
I don't know either.
I've just always heard you call it the blurb, so I just assumed that's what it was called, and I never went searching for an actual word.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of British people call it the blurb. And because I'm so, I watch a lot of, British YouTubers and, BBC America and stuff, and I don't know, I always just call it the burb. Yeah. Or the burb.
The burb.
It's a burb. Tweet, tweet.
It's a burb. It's a plane.
Okay, so the Graveyard Book, here's the blurb. Nobody Owens, known to his friends as Bod, is a perfectly normal boy. Well, he would be perfectly normal if he didn't live in a graveyard, being raised and educated by ghosts, with a solitary guardian who belongs to neither the world of the living nor the world of the dead. There are dangers and adventures for Bod in the graveyard, the strange and terrible menace of the Sleer, the gravestone entrance to a desert that leads to the city of ghouls, friendship with a witch, and so much more. But it is in the land of the living that real danger lurks, for it is there that the man Jack lives, and he has already killed Bod's family. A deliciously dark masterwork by best-selling author Neil Gaiman, with illustrations that in the book that we didn't read. Oh no, there were illustrations in our book. Sorry,
I had some
there's also a. I was thinking of the graphic novel version, because there's also a graphic novel version.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
that would be
there were illustrations in the book that we read, but there's also the graphic novel one.
That's interesting. I'd be interested in taking a look at that graphic novel.
Yeah, it looks really cool and fun, and I like it a lot.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
So I guess I'll fit with illustrations by award-winning Dave McKean.
Oh.
So there you go.
Right.
Just to give him the credit that he deserves. So I found some book club questions that we can talk about.
Okay.
And I guess I'll just go ahead and get started with one that I like. So it is, there's a rich tradition of orphans in children's literature, as well as a tradition of Child of Destiny themes in fantasy literature. Discuss how Bod fits squarely into both categories. There's so many orphans in books and movies and stuff. Yeah.
Dude, the first thing that I thought of when I heard the prophecy or whatever is, y'all motherfuckers need to stop making the prophecies that you don't want to come true by killing their families.
Yeah.
Like, fucking Voldemort. You didn't go there and you didn't fucking do that dumb shit. It never would have fucking happened.
Yeah.
These motherfuckers, you didn't go there. You didn't kill his fucking family. He never would have grown up in a fucking graveyard to become the fucking Link there.
Exactly.
If you don't want it to happen, stop making it fucking happen.
Yeah. The theme of that is basically just don't fucking mess with shit. Just let it happen the way it's going to happen, because it's going to happen either way.
Right.
That's true for real life too. As someone who partakes in the witchcraftian things, I know for certain that things are going to happen the way that they happen, and you have no control over it. And I've been trying to practice that in life so much more lately than I ever have before. Just because, things will happen and I'll get angry about them, particularly with airports, but it's just going to happen, and you just really need to learn to accept it, and you'll be so much happier for it.
Right.
Yeah.
It's always when people try to meddle with things, they make it worse.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you just step back and let life happen the way that life's going to happen, you'll be so much happier, and it'll take so much stress off.
Yeah. For sure. The Child of Destiny themes, as they call it.
Yeah.
So what about the orphan thing? Why are they always orphans? What's the reasoning there?
I think that with that, it's just the biggest trial that authors can come up with.
That's true.
Growing up without parents and with guardians and that kind of stuff, you have to go through shit. when that happens.
Yeah.
And it makes for a compelling story. It makes you feel for the characters right out of the gate.
Yeah.
You know,
it's an easy way to beg sympathy at the very beginning of the story, and especially in this book, I feel like it's very like. See, this book is, when I looked it up, it like as far as Neil Gaiman books, a lot of what I like about Neil Gaiman is a lot of his books are like those rich fantasy worlds that are aimed towards adults and people like, you know, people our age and older, and I really like that. And I saw when we were talking about doing this book that it was somewhat aimed toward like young adults specifically, but also, you know, anybody could read any book. Don't ever let anybody tell you that, oh, that book's too young or too old for you. Just fucking read it. But hope that helps. But where the hell was I going with that? Oh god.
Yeah, no, sorry.
Oh yeah, but so the point of that is that when I started reading it, I was like, whoa, this is dark for something that was aimed toward a little younger. Like, he fully just goes in and murders his family, and then this poor toddler's like wandering the streets by himself until he comes upon the graveyard, and the ghosts kind of take him under their wing, which is very sweet. And I think definitely, I enjoyed it a lot now, but I definitely would have enjoyed it also as a middle school kid or anything like that, because it's like that just enough dark and just enough magic, but it's also like just very like a sweet story.
It doesn't it definitely doesn't feel as much like an orphan story as some do, because he has his graveyard family. As
far as he's concerned, like, he's not an orphan, he's had parents, you know, his adopted parents and all the people around him that have raised him over the years. Like, it's not like a, you know, it's different than like a Harry Potter, because like even though he had people taking care of him his whole life,
it was different.
It was different because they weren't nurturing. They didn't take care of him in the way that they should have. It was very like abusive and very different. Bod is very much not like that. He's had a perfectly like loving and nurturing childhood, but just not in a conventional way. Like it's very like macabre, but he doesn't know that. Like, people from the outside are like, oh my god, he like lives in a graveyard, like what the hell, like someone save this child, but he's having a great time, and he's being well looked after,
well taken care of as far as like learning goes, making sure he's not far behind the curve. He grows up to be a really intelligent kid.
And in a lot of ways, I think from a historical perspective, I have my own opinions about how education has changed and things that probably shouldn't have changed and things that should have. But I feel like he learns a lot more than, you know, conventionally educated kids do, which is really kind of interesting. But it's an interesting take on this kind of story because he's not suffering the whole time. Like, he is an orphan and he is a child of destiny, but
trials and that kind of stuff. But it's not bad. You know?
It's kind of refreshing that all of his like trials are very like kid stuff, but like, I don't know, like, it's definitely, like, mystical and magical and stuff, but it's like, oh, this thing happened and I got in trouble. Like, it just, you know, it's not like, oh, everyone died and this, and, you know, I don't know.
It's definitely nice to see, like, because I keep comparing it to Harry Potter in my mind, because a lot of it's similar.
Easy, you know,
but the
orphans,
thing about this
magic,
is,
you know,
the trials that he had didn't last very long. Like, it was very hard for me to pinpoint a plot, like, to figure out what was going to happen next, because it kept switching around, because the things that happened didn't take, like, it wasn't like, here's the beginning of the story, here's where things get really terrifying and interesting, and then here's the resolution. It was like a constant up and down, like, different trials, but it was like, it grew, the trials grew as he did. Like,
I love how it like skips over, because it, again, because it's so like not a conventional like orphan story the way that we know them in this day and age. It's like very like skips over like a regular childhood does. Like, it's like, oh, when I was a kid this happened and then this happened too, and then it's like telling stories from his life. And like skipping around. It's like sitting down and asking about someone's life and they tell you stories from all of their ages. But then at the end, it all gets wrapped together, and all of this stuff was relevant the entire time, which I also really like, because sometimes books can do that kind of skipping around thing, and it's very interesting, but not all of it is relevant to what happens later.
Yeah.
So that, for this book, is definitely a good thing that I really like.
Absolutely.
Alright.
It's definitely nice.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. So, let's see. Oh, okay, this is interesting. Now, it says, the graveyard is populated with characters we typically think of as evil. How does Gaiman play with this idea, particularly in the characters of Silas, Miss Lepescu, and Eliza Hemstock? What do these characterizations suggest about human nature? Now, I'm gonna say it right now. Witches are not evil. So there's that. But he's right. Like, conventionally, these characters would be like that. Like, Miss Lepescu is like, she's like a werewolf, but she's also kind of a hellhound or something like that. Like, it's that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And Silas is,
I never really figured out what Silas was.
Yeah, it's never clearly defined, but I also think that he's not like traditionally evil either. He's just very like, no one knows what's up with him.
Yeah, he's dark and stormy, but for good reasons.
Yeah, he's a good emo. We love him.
Exactly. Exactly.
And the witch, but like, I think that it's very much on purpose to have all of these characters that are like, because again, it's not a conventional story, and it's a very like weird upbringing that he has in this graveyard, and so to take things that, you know, maybe mundane world would say are weird or evil or wrong or whatever, and it just weaves it into these very normal, like, Silas is his guardian and his teacher, and Miss Lepescu is also his teacher, and Eliza Hemstock is one of his good friends, and it's like taking these things that are like conventionally like off or evil and making them part of a regular story, like taking a graveyard and making it into a home.
Exactly.
It's like, yeah, it's really, obviously it's very purposeful, but I think it's a very bold of him to say, here's all this stuff, and doesn't this seem normal to you? Doesn't this seem normal in this context? And maybe on a broader thing, it's like, well, maybe you shouldn't judge something before you really look into it, or you really have another perspective on it. I think that's really cool, the way he does that. And he does that in a lot of his books also.
Yeah, like even Liza, the witch, she starts off with everyone else in the graveyard too being like kind of like, you know, I'm a little bit, you really shouldn't go over to that part because we don't know the people that's like criminals and suicides and
they're
witches.
not, what is it, traditionally buried, or they didn't have
not,
like a holy service or anything like that.
On sacred ground.
Oh, on sacred ground. That's right.
It's on
the other part.
Yeah, it's just a plot of ground where people get buried
because they ran out of space to put them, so they put them over there.
Yeah, they were just like, you can go in the field. And the people who were buried on the hallowed ground, they're like, no, don't go over there. Don't go over there. That's scary. Mm-hmm. These scary evil things. Yeah. And then we meet Liza, and she's just like, I honestly just want a gravestone, my guy.
Yeah.
I just want to be acknowledged.
She's
like I was a witch. Like, fuck those guys. I definitely cursed them. They all got the plague. Fuck them.
Yeah. They deserved it.
Right. But like, I was just fucking living my life. I didn't do what they fucking forced me to do, or what they accused me of doing. That motherfucker was just thirsty. Mm-hmm. Like.
Yeah. Exactly.
Not my fucking fault. I mean, I was a witch, but like, my fault.
Yeah, I was a witch, but that doesn't make me evil.
Right.
That's the big, like, and even saying that within a world so crazy and non-conventional as this, there are segregations happening. There's, you know, prejudice happening. And it's so interesting because you're like, but you're all weird, so surely you should love each other. Well, that's what someone would say about our society if they didn't know it. They'd be like, well, you're all weird, you're all the same kind, you're all human, you're all this, why are there different groups here? So that's another thing that he like weaves into there, is like, maybe it's not so bad to be this or that or the other, maybe we're all just here and we should all just kind of coexist. And for sure. I
also definitely do love his Bod's and Silas's relationship, because I really think that it's important for growing minds to have someone that they can go to get straight answers from.
Yes.
Go to have conversations that other people are like, oh no, you're too young for that.
Yeah.
Because
or that's not seemly and you shouldn't know about those things.
Yeah, you should know.
Not that everyone like that speaks like that, but
right. Like, you shouldn't know about the fucking suicides buried in the Potter's Field. You shouldn't know about that. Or just, you shouldn't know what happened to your family, that kind of stuff. But it's like, kids need to know. They need to have the information. Like, it's more than just curiosity. It's a need for knowledge. Yeah. And the more you try to hide it, the more curious they get. And it's important for them to have an outlet for that. Yeah. It's important for them to have somebody that will give them answers.
It never serves anyone to be not told the entire truth.
Right.
When kids ask you a question, answer it honestly. Because even if they don't understand the answer, they will. And they'll appreciate you for being honest. Instead of saying, like, oh, I don't know, I can't really think of an example, but it's just like it's kind of like the whole sex thing. When kids ask you what sex is, tell them. Right. Just tell them. Like, you don't have to be, like, crude about it. It's a normal thing that happens, as is, unfortunately, suicides and things like that. Right. They happen, and when someone asks you a question about it, you should answer it honestly, regardless of how old they are. Right. Because it never, ever serves them to be lied to and growing up having misconceptions about things. It only makes things harder. Right. And I love that I love that relationship they have too. It's just like, his ghost parents are a little more traditional and they're probably not going to tell them all of those things. They think for his greater good, but Silas is there to answer those questions, and it does him a world of good.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
That's why it hurt so much when Silas wasn't there, because no one would answer any of his questions. He needs the guidance. Yeah. Children need guidance, and they shouldn't be penalized for asking for it.
Exactly. Yeah. Because they're children. Right. They need guidance. That's a thing. It shouldn't be hard.
Right.
Yeah.
Hot take.
Hot take. Yeah, there's your hot take for the week. Okay, so let's move on here. So, Bod's human interactions are limited to a short-lived friendship with Scarlet and a brief stint at school. Discuss how these experiences change Bod. How do our friendships and associations with others affect us?
It is really important to have people that you can empathize with, and that you can have that kind of relationship where you're not... It's difficult to explain in like, well, you know what? You're dead and you're alive. And you need to have people that you can understand their experiences. You need to have people who can grow with you. And it was so important for him to have that friendship with Scarlet and to learn how to be a kid that's growing with somebody and to form that little friendship. And it's so special for him to have that friendship. And then at school, he is learning. We get to see how much he cares about people doing the right thing. How he's been taught to, help people when they're struggling, to not really think about yourself and put others first and do what you would want them to do for you. And it was a real character building experience for him. Both of them were just ways for him to not feel so alone. Yeah. And to get to learn and to feel like he's not the only person who's going through certain things.
Yeah. It's, oh my god, the ending with him and Scarlet broke
that was really
me.
Upsetting.
It broke me.
I was hoping that there was more to that. I was hoping that there would be like when he's traveling, he ends up in
and maybe
Glasgow.
There was maybe
it's something that we can imagine in our minds.
We can do the fan theories and all that, but but even that will be a good experience for him to have had. It's always it's good to learn from things like that, and it's so in a way that's like away from the story and how you can apply it to real life. It's so important for people to not only experience people that are very, very different from themselves, and a variety of people who are different from them, it's just as important to have people around them that are like them.
Yeah.
And you hear this discussion a lot with people who are adopted by parents of a different race than them or a different culture than them. And it's, as much as it's very important to experience other cultures and be, you know, at least be empathetic to people that do things other than what you do, it's also really important to have people that are like you, that even look like you, or have similar traits to you. Because it's so... to feel that kind of unity with anyone else, because he grows up entirely around people, except for pretty much Scarlet, at least in the beginning part of his life, only with people that have this big difference from him in that they're all dead and he is not.
Yeah.
And, you know, as much as he had a perfectly, like, you know, fine upbringing in a lot of ways, it was still really important for him to have those experiences with Scarlet, and later on he has his stint at school in the real world, and not the real world, the alive world, or the outside world, whatever they call it, but but yeah, it's you really need to have experiences with people that are like you, but also experiences with people that are not like you at all. You just really need that variety in order to be perfectly, like, well-rounded and understanding and empathetic. It's really important.
And a lot of times you don't realize how alone you feel until you have that moment. Like, I'm sure Bod would have taken a lot longer for him to realize just how much he needed that human interaction, that the live interaction, if Scarlet hadn't shown up, you know, but she came in and then she got whisked off to Scotland, and it's like, I didn't realize how badly I needed this.
Yeah.
Until you came along and you showed me that I don't have to be, like, alone all the time with people who are... The big thing with ghosts is that they don't change. Yeah. They don't ever grow. They're just who they are, and that's it.
And that's it right there. Like, growing up with people that think one way in any... that was a really understanding. That only understand from one perspective and never ever change. I know that's very much on purpose, the way that he did that. You have to have those other experiences. And a lot of people will say, well, if things always stay the same and you don't expose them to other things, they can never feel that loneliness that they wouldn't have known otherwise. But here's the thing about the world, especially the world now that we live in now, because you can access all of those things on the outside, regardless of how you're raised. Like, no matter where you are, eventually you're going to come across something and be like, oh, that's really different. And you can have really extreme reactions to that. It's just not possible to keep someone sheltered from anything anymore. Not in the world we live in now, and even in, you know, centuries past. Like, eventually something's gonna come along and shake up your whole world, and you're gonna be like, why didn't anyone tell me about this before? And you can either have a really bad reaction to it, or just completely but either way, your world's gonna get turned upside down, and it's better to have early exposure to things like that. I was just watching a video about people who used to be Amish and are no longer Amish. It's that same thing, because, well, Amish people, at least these people and the people that I've experienced firsthand, because here in Delaware, there's not as many here in Delaware, but we're right by Pennsylvania, and a lot of, like, northern part of Pennsylvania is Amish country. So from the people that I've seen and spoken to, and in this, you know, in videos and all those kinds of things, it's like, it's so interesting to see how they react when they discover, oh, there's all this other stuff, because they're led to believe that there isn't. And sometimes it's okay, and sometimes they're like, no, I'd rather be here than out there, but then other times it's like, you know, they can get upset at not being allowed to experience those things, or just completely leave, and it's entirely their decision, but they have to go through such a terrible internal journey to decide whatever they end up deciding, and for what? Like, if you have that exposure early on and you have a variety of things in front of you and realize how vast the world is and have, you know, that broad understanding of things that are other than you, you know, when you get older, you'll already know that those things are there, and you'll be used to them, and it won't shake up your world as soon as you hear something, because you're like, yeah, you know, of course that exists.
Right.
And it's very much, I know that that's very much on purpose, how Neil Gaiman did that, because it is so important to have that variety. Right. Just a funny thought, because I'm like, listening to you're finally experiencing how I get when we talk about things on this podcast, because I'm just like raising my arms up and like talking about things, and honestly, usually I'm sitting here by myself doing this, and it's just it's like,
I'm honestly the exact same way. I'm like constantly like moving about and just trying to get my point across without sitting still, because I literally...
I need to, like, get some movement in there to get the words. Right. It's like I'm literally...
You're winding up your
I'm winding
vocab.
up. It's like I'm physically reaching for words and points that I need. I'm like reaching up like it's a freaking jazzercise class. Alright, so I've got one more preset question, and we can talk about whatever afterwards, but so here's what I have here. Like much of Gaiman's work, the Graveyard Book manages to fuse elements of humor, horror, fantasy, and mystery into a single story. And you can identify examples of these elements and discuss how they work together. How might the story read differently if one or more of these elements were removed? So let's take it in terms. If it didn't have any humor, it might be...
That'd be so macabre. Like, it wouldn't feel as...
Because it is funny. It's very funny.
Yeah, it's funny, and that helps to lighten it up and not feel like a graveyard book, you know? It helps to give it a little bit more of that relatability and good feeling, you know? It wouldn't be such a pleasant book to read if it didn't have a little bit of that spicy humor in there.
Why is it spicy? And then on the other side... It also mentions horror. If there was none of that, I feel like it would definitely read much younger than it does. Because even though it's supposed to be, like, a little bit younger than the rest of his books, it's still, like there's enough of that you're, like I said before, like, I was like, oh, this is a little dark, but it's good.
Yeah.
And necessary also, because, like I said before, when kids ask you questions, you should answer them. Young people should be reading books like this, because... to be prepared for the world, because if you think that the world is sunshine and rainbows your whole life and grow up and realize it's terrible, unfortunately it's going to cause a terrible reaction in you, and you might harm yourself or others, and it's not good. So you really need to be... These kind of stories that are so well-rounded are so good for young people to read.
They're really, really nice. It's it definitely gives you a good understanding of the type of books and the type of experiences that there are out there, and it's really, really lovely. Yeah.
And I'll skip over fantasy for the moment and say mystery is the other one that we have. If there was no mystery, I feel like there wouldn't be any plot.
Yeah, there wouldn't be any plot. Like, honestly, I loved that I couldn't pinpoint what was going to happen.
Yeah.
I loved that it kept me like, okay, but why do they want to kill him so bad? Like, the constantly wondering what was gonna happen, and the knowing in the back of your mind that
Jack. What are we talking about?
That Jack was the graveyard. What was his name?
Oh, the teacher guy. Whatever his
historian.
name was.
But knowing in the back of your mind that this historian is not to be trusted and it's 100% Jack. Yeah. And then not knowing, like, being like, but what if it's literally just some guy?
Me, yes,
because I was like, I don't trust this motherfucker. Yeah. And then I'd be like, well, you know, maybe. Yeah.
I went through the opposite journey where at the first I was like, wow, he seems pretty cool. And then, like, halfway through I was like, wait a second, he's Jack. He must be.
Yeah.
Because this lines up too well, and I'm very not trusting, and I was like, wait a second, no, he is, and then later on it's obviously like, yes, he is.
From the second he was on there and he was like talking to Scarlet, I was like, I don't trust your fucking bitch ass face.
Because I was like, this is very late in the book to introduce a character like this. So, yeah, it was pretty... Okay. While we were talking about that, I want to ask you what your reaction was when they said Jack of all trades for the first time.
I was like, huh, nice, clever.
I was actually at work, sitting at my desk. I don't have much to do during the day. It's like a very, like, I open doors and answer phones and stuff, but in the middle I have, like, a little bit of time to chill, so I was just reading my book, sitting at my desk, and I remember, well, I started to notice the, what'd they call it, Jack Nimble was one of them, like Jack Be Nimble, and Jack, what was the other one? There were other ones, they were all, like, puns and whatever, and I was like, oh, that's funny, but I thought that was the end of it. I was like, oh, they're all just, like, silly Jack names. And then they were like, the Jack of all trades, and I put down the book, and I looked up, and I went, oh my god! Oh my god.
No, I appreciated the clever, but softly.
Yeah. It was like, I literally, like, physically closed my book, looked up, and went, oh my god. Neil. It was so good, though. That's exactly the reaction you want out of that, though. It's like, oh my fucking god. Of course they're the Jack of all trades. That's so good. It's just so fun. And he does stuff like that a lot. Okay. The last one was fantasy. Honestly, Neil Gaiman books without fantasy wouldn't be Neil Gaiman books.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of a necessary aspect in a book like this. It wouldn't be a book without the fantasy. Yeah,
especially a story like this, but also Neil Gaiman and fantasy is like a match made in heaven or whatever, like, divine place you believe in. Like, it's just... they work so well together. He writes fantasy like no other. I swear to God. Like, and I'm so excited for you to read more of his books, because I've been reading a lot of his books, and they just... chef's kiss. So good. Like, some of the best. And I love reading fantasy. It's like my favorite genre that there is as far as literature goes, and I have a good amount of experience reading fantasy, and I can safely say that Neil Gaiman is probably in my top 3 fantasy writers of all time. Like, he's just that good.
Yeah, I honestly would say that's very fair.
Yeah. And, and I definitely think that a lot of his books, especially the ones that skew a little older than this one, use the fantasy, horror, humor, and mystery all together, like, so well, in a way that, because I often feel like fantasy can be written off as, like, oh, that's what kids read, that's what teenagers read, and stuff like that, and, like, people, unless you're like my mom, who, like, reads all of it, and she loves it, or me, you know, but, like, I'll read a fantasy book that's, like, skewed a little bit younger, like this, or, you know, other things like this, but also to have an author that writes fantasy meant for adults that is so... it gives me that same feeling that I would have reading, like, Harry Potter or something, and, I mean, for me even now, but especially as, like, a teenager or a kid, just to have that same kind of, like, relatability to a story, and it also be this crazy fantasy thing, like, it's just amazing. It really, really is. And I am a big fan of Gaiman's work, and I can't read to wait more. I can't wait to read more.
Yeah, it's definitely... I don't read nearly as much as I would like to. Books are expensive. That's
fucking true. It's fucking true.
It's rough to read when you literally have no money.
Yeah. I've been buying a lot of Kindle books, like inexpensive Kindle books as of late. I finally found my Kindle, so it's like, and but you can read them on the computer or the phone or whatever, but it's nice to have the Kindle.
It's definitely, it's been nice to get back into reading, and the giddy feeling that you get when something really special in a fantasy book happens, like something like really, really creative and really imaginative, and you read it and you're just like, oh, that's so fucking cool. Like, I love that feeling.
It's so good.
It's just, it's what makes books worth reading, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And that's, my favorite thing about a book is escapism. That's why I read so much fantasy, because I don't want it to be too realistic. I do read the odd, like, young adult fiction or whatever, you know, just like I recently read High Fidelity, which is like a very, very realistic book about, you know, this guy who owns a record store and he's struggling with a breakup and yada yada, and it's very real, but I don't read so much of that because I want more escapism in books, so that's definitely why I read fantasy more than anything else. Yeah, very nice. Good book. I would say 4.8 out of 5. You don't have to rate it. I just thought that would be
I always go out of 10.
Oh, okay. So I'd say then 9.2 out of 10.
I'd probably go more like probably like an 8 for me. It's still really high. It's still a lovely book, and I definitely will probably end up reading it again.
Yeah.
Just
it's
to
an
see.
easy book to read again. Yeah, I think so.
It also, I feel like, is definitely one of those books that you're gonna read it again, and you're gonna see little things that are like,
yes,
foreshadowing.
Yeah.
And that'll be really interesting. It's definitely a really, really good book. I think I tend to skew more towards more of a linear timeline. I think the
it was very different.
Yeah, it was very,
but it was an
very
interesting different.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was an interesting different. It was a good different. I think I just, in my mind, I prefer like a book with like I said earlier, with like a trial that you can easily see as the main trial of the book, and then the resolution. And then this one was like, here's a trial. Yeah. It ends, and then there's another trial, and then there's another trial, and then there's another trial, and then there's the main one.
The end.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it all goes together very nicely, and it forms like this really nice bow on the end of the book. But I think I prefer a little bit more of a linear. Yeah. Linear reading
well, most
experience.
of his other books are a little more linear, so
yeah, I'm very, very
those.
excited to give more of his books a shot.
Yeah. Okay, so that's it for talking about The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman. We've decided already that for January 2022, by the way, Happy New Year. Sorry,
yes,
we didn't say
New
that
Year.
yet. Happy 2022. I hope the end of your year was good as it could be. I hope this year is even better, and stay safe and all that good stuff. But so for January, we decided we're going to be reading an Agatha Christie book, which I'm so excited about. I feel like I already, even though this was your decision, I feel like I've taken the reins on these books, because I was like, oh, it's a Neil Gaiman book, we should read a Neil Gaiman book, and now it's an Agatha Christie book, who, by the way, is one of my favorite authors ever. It's a pretty basic choice, but it's like, I love a good mystery book, and there's so many Agatha Christie books, and I just love the fun that is just in these books. So, but this was actually your decision, I don't feel as bad about it. Yeah. But we'll both enjoy ourselves. But it is one I haven't read. It's called Death in the Clouds. I did not read the book to read the blurb, but I can always look it up. Yeah. But that'll be really exciting, because this is actually this does not have any fantasy elements at all. It is a mystery novel, as all of Agatha Christie's books are.
I'm really excited. The only Agatha Christie book I've read is
And Then There Were None.
And Then There Were None.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I loved that book so much. I remember I was reading it while I was driving for Domino's. Mm-hmm. Not sponsored.
Oh god, I clipped the audio, sorry.
But while I was,
I think there was another episode where I was like, I was working at a pizza place.
Yeah, that's why I
it was
side
Domino's. It's okay.
Like, oh no,
I'm not gonna say anything bad about Domino's.
Yeah,
so.
We're not gonna shit on Domino's. I still order from you. It's fine.
I just ate them the other day.
Yeah,
we just ate them the other day. It's fine.
But I was reading, and then there were none while I was driving.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I would go back into the store and, like, somebody would do some sus shit. Like, it just,
yes.
like, a person inside the store, and I'd be like, I bet it's you. And
I bet
I'd be
it's
like,
you.
Diamond,
Nope, that was a book. Yeah, exactly.
It's not real life, it's a book.
And then there were none is a fantastic book. By the way, if you want to be creeped out by a mystery book, and then there were none is your boy. Because I read half of it in one night and half of it in the other, and both times I was home alone, and it was nighttime. And it was very, like, ugh.
It's definitely a really, like, it's definitely a mystery thriller. I love it.
Yes, as a thriller. Absolutely. Yeah, very good. Okay, so for Death in the Clouds, I have the blurb. Okay, Death in the Clouds. From seat number 9, Hercule Poirot, who is a detective that she writes a lot of, was ideally placed to observe his fellow air passengers. Over to his right sat a pretty young woman, clearly infatuated with the man opposite. Ahead, in seat number 13, sat a countess with a poorly concealed cocaine habit. Across the gangway in seat number 8, a detective writer was being troubled by an aggressive wasp. What Poirot did not realize was that behind him, in seat number 2, sat the slumped, lifeless body of a woman. Dun dun dun!
Dun, dun, dun.
So it's a murder mystery, which is one of my favorite. Mine underneath fantasy. My second favorite genre book is a murder mystery for sure.
That's definitely fair.
That'll be really exciting. I'm really excited for that. So that'll be good. And then at the end of January this month, or the beginning of February, like we're doing now-ish, but you know,
yeah,
sometime then we'll talk about that book and read along with us if you want. If you don't, that's fine.
Yeah, that's
so
cool
there's
too.
that. Would you like to hit us with a hot take, Diamond?
Tell your children things when they ask.
There you go.
It's the best.
That is a good hot take.
It's just it's such a like. It's the kind of hot take that you say it and you're just like, yeah. 100%.
You're right. Why aren't we doing that? Yeah, exactly.
What the hell?
Okay, and my hot take is another one that we mentioned already, is that read what you want. If it makes you happy, you should read what you want. If you want to read books that are meant for people 10 years younger or 10 years older than you, just go for it. If you want to read hardcore smut, read it. Like, if you want to, and don't be ashamed of it at all, because life's too short for that.
Yeah. It's like I'm always telling Gabriel, you need to just...
Gabriel's her almost stepson, by the way.
Yeah, sorry.
It's her fiance's son.
You need to just stop worrying about what everybody else is going to think about the things that you enjoy, and just enjoy what you want.
Yeah, the earlier you learn that, the better off you'll be.
Right, like I spent so much of my life deciding who I am based on what other people's perceptions of me were going to be, and how my appearance or my general existence was going to affect them, or how they would see me, or what they would think. And I am so much happier now that I don't give a fuck. Like, just it's so simple, and it seems so like obvious to just, well, of course you like what you like, and why is that? Mm-hmm. But it's such a hard thing to actually put into practice. Yeah. Like, if you like fucking anime, fuck
that anime.
Yeah. If you like anime, don't be afraid to buy yourself a cool fucking anime shirt.
Yeah.
Like,
buy a body pillow. Date it if you want. Do it.
Like, don't go around fucking looking at this shit and then shitting on it because you think that that's what you're supposed to do for the things that you enjoy. Mm-hmm. Like, if you like anime, you like anime. If you like fantasy, you like fantasy. If you like smut, fuck it.
That's it. There are no more genres of books.
Right. Just if you like shit, then like it. You don't be ashamed, and don't worry about anybody else, because nobody else fucking matters, honestly.
For sure.
Yeah. There's always going to be somebody who's going to love you for you, and fuck with it, you know?
Yeah. And if they don't, I do. I love you.
Right.
We love you so much.
TJ.
We love you so much, TJ.
He hadn't been
like
mentioned.
What you like, man.
He hadn't been mentioned yet this week, so
there you
go.
Throw
that in there.
Alrighty. Whose turn is it to do a dad joke? I do have one, if you wanna.
I also have one, but you go ahead.
Are you sure?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I don't know whose turn it is, so
I think it's probably yours.
I think you might be right about it. Okay, so I have a joke. Okay. I mixed up the words jacuzzi and yakuza. Now I'm in hot water with the Japanese mafia. This is so fun because usually I don't get to tell jokes to your face. Usually they're on Discord.
You're just hoping for the reaction. You don't get to actually see it happen.
Yeah, I saw that one online the other day. I was like, I need to use that next time.
Right.
Fall Out Boy title, go!
Oh, motherfucker. Oh, I hate it here.
That's the title.
Yeah, I hate it here. Your face is like my sock drawer, and in parentheses, I don't go into it. I don't know.
Here's the one I actually came up. Usually I don't come up with one, but I came up with one today. It doesn't make any sense, but none of them do.
Yeah.
The moon and the stars look beautiful tonight, but why are you in my car? Oh, that's a good one. All right. Till the next time, my dudes.
Bye.
Bye.